Hello and good morning. My name is Bear with BearIndependent.com. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. You are going to need this information to navigate what comes ahead in our daily lives. If you're not new here, go ahead and share this out with people you love that need to see this. Appreciate y'all. Today we are going to talk about civil unrest indicators. Well, first confirming that we do indeed actually have a live stream. Why, yes, we do. Excellent. We're going to talk first about Cremo, which is like not far from criminal in Illinois, and then we're going to look at the broader picture as well. I'm sure many of y'all or most of y'all are already tracking on this scumbag in Illinois. However, Bear Independent Brief, 6JUL22. A rooftop gunman killed 6 people and injured over 20 more at the 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois, a Chicago suburb, which I'm sure, now listen, this guy's a scumbag, despicable acts of violence. Haven't heard anything else about, I believe it was the other 176 shooting incidents this past weekend in Chicago, because Mayor Lori Lightfoot is just killing it with her policies and doctrine. The 22-year-old Cremo obtained a, quote, high-powered rifle, air quote, legally, though authorities say the origins of the weapon are unknown. Back in 2013, the area locally banned semi-automatic firearms with capacities over 10 rounds. And after this event, Mayor Nancy Rotering said, I think it's important to know, this is a quote, I think it's important to know that our assault weapons ban is reflective of the values of our community. Obviously, we have a problem in this country if we have weekly mass shootings involving these weapons of war. Yes, sweetheart, remember that. Weapons of war. And it's important for us to talk about how to provide that protection on a broader scale, whether it's statewide or whether it's nationally, end quote. Now, just a thought. Let it happen or made it happen, right? Probably made it happen at this point is my guess, my take. Unofficial reporting, my gut feeling made it happen. The initial reports were that this guy was some type of MAGA domestic terrorist, even though he's very clearly been shown to have ties to the radical left. Posted all types of violent videos and imagery on his rap videos on YouTube, which have since been taken down, but were archived by thousands of people beforehand. Marxist ideology, equipped, I believe equipped. How does one get a semi-automatic, air quote, weapon of war in that area? They say it was obtained illegally, but okay. Here's the question. Why is it that when the weapon was recovered, initial reports have it that he left the weapon on the rooftop? Anybody with any level of training, you never leave your weapon. It should always be within arm's reach of you. If you got to go sit on the toilet, your weapon goes with you. The toilet, the latrine, the cat hole, whatever it is, your weapon goes with you. You don't ditch your weapon. It was left because it needed to be found, in my opinion, to perpetuate this narrative of these dangerous weapons of war are killing our children in the streets and we need to do something about it. Ergo, more gun control. Now, we just saw with the SCOTUS decisions, several SCOTUS decisions, upholding your God-given constitutionally protected right to own and bear these arms. We saw the radical left lose their ever-loving minds over this. And of course, they were all keyed up because of the Roe v. Wade decision. And now, all of a sudden, we have another mass shooting on Independence Day. Coincidence? I think not. There has been for some time now a bifurcation within the United States governance, a separation, two different paths, if you will. Those that respect and uphold the Constitution and will defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and those that are fleecing the system. And I think we're going to see more of this for a lot of reasons, geopolitically, socioeconomically, but also because that system is in its death throes. It's dying. And the opportunity to extract as much capital out of that system as possible is coming to an end. Now, the big they, big they, are fully aware of this, and I think actually encouraging it. The Great Reset, anybody? They're actually attempting to hit the reset button on society as a whole across planet Earth. But some of the smaller they, the mid-level scumbags, the mid-grade politicians, people that get paid $160,000 a year and yet have stock portfolios worth tens of millions of dollars. Those people. I don't think they're necessarily in control of the controlled demolition, the planned collapse of world governance and therefore world systems, but they can read the writing on the wall. And therefore their window of opportunity to extract capital and make moves is closing. And so that contributes an element of desperation to what is already a very charged environment politically in this country, because we've politicized everything. There is no live and let live anymore. There is no American ethos of, well, I don't have to agree with everything my neighbor says, but they're my neighbor. I should do my best to take care of them however I can. That's gone. We don't live that way anymore. And that has been intentional, in my estimation, over the last half a century at least. The politicization of everything and the intentional efforts, propagandized efforts. It was made legal during the Obama administration for national news outlets to pump propaganda. That's completely legal. The propagandization of the American ethos is something that has been going on for a long time, but is now, it's clear as a bell now. And so this scumbag in Illinois is just one example of what there will be much more of. Now, are there easy ways to deal with this? It's the same way you deal with, food scarcity, civil unrest, martial law. Don't be where the problem is. It's actually not possible to pay me to make me show up where there are a bunch of people are. Not interested. The juice is not worth the squeeze for me. I know what fireworks look like, and frankly, I don't think fireworks are the exact way that we should be celebrating the blood that has been shed for this country over the last 2.5 centuries so that we have the constitutionally protected, God-given rights to protect ourselves, exercise our First Amendment rights, to say what we want to say, to worship the way we see fit, to love God with everything we have and love our neighbor as ourself. And I can say that while respecting the institution of, hey, it's the 4th of July, let's go watch some fireworks and eat a funnel cake or something. But this is just the beginning. It's going to get worse, way worse, before it gets better in my estimation. The gunman, the son of a man who had run for mayor against the current mayor, Rotering, interesting, was described, quote, as a lonely, quiet person. He had dressed as a woman for the attack, allegedly to conceal his identity and facial tattoos. I think he just dressed as a woman because it made him feel all warm and tingly. Or I will say, if he did dress as a woman, probably wasn't the first time. There's a Torah for that. Since the shooting, rumors have spread alleging various political affiliations of the shooter. It appears from his social media history that he attended Trump rallies in the past, though his motivation for doing so remains unclear at this point. Yeah, he was trolling people at these Trump rallies. He was dressed up as Where's Waldo on several instances. He was an amateur rapper, and some of his videos depicting imagery of references to the JFK assassination and that shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald. In response to the shooting, Biden said, quote, "I recently signed the first major bipartisan gun reform legislation in almost 30 years into law, which includes actions that will save lives. But there is much more work to do, and I'm not going to give up fighting the epidemic of gun violence," end quote. Dr. Jonathan Meltz, professor of sociology at Vanderbilt University, told USA Today, quote, "We are seeing politicians powerfully speaking out about changes to gun laws to make communities like Highland Park safer from gunfire." Wait a minute, Highland Park already banned, air quote, assault weapons and weapons of war. They have a magazine capacity ban. So more laws would have made that situation safer? I disagree. Criminals, by their very nature, don't care about your laws. If they respected your laws, they wouldn't be criminals. We are seeing politicians powerfully speaking out about changes to gun laws to make communities like Highland Park safer from gunfire. However, practically every intervention proposed, such as limiting assault rifles in public and instituting red flag laws, is likely unconstitutional under the recent Supreme Court gun legislation ruling. It's not likely unconstitutional. It is unconstitutional. I will go so far as to say, shall not be infringed. Why do I need a piece of paper to carry a firearm on my side at all times? Why do I need a piece of paper to put a noise-reducing device on the end of my muzzle? Why do I need a piece of paper to, have 3 holes in a lower receiver and a full-blown giggle switch? I'll go even further. If you're a non-violent felon and you've paid your dues to society, or if you refuse to do those 2 things and that other thing while wearing the uniform and were dishonorably discharged for cowardice, which I would say is the opposite of cowardice, I would say it's moral and ethical. But if you were dishonorably discharged while in uniform for sticking with your convictions and now can't own a firearm, I would disagree with that. Shall not be infringed. Are you saying the bad guys should have guns too? Define bad guys. I'm saying if you're a serial rapist, there's a really easy way to deal with that. If you're a mass shooter, there's a really easy way to deal with that. Rather than these people rotting in a concrete box to the tune of 70,000 taxpayer dollars per year, 147 grain jacket at Hollow Point costs like $1.50 in today's market. Next. And I know diesel is expensive, but you can dig a decent sized hole pretty quickly, even with a mini excavator or a skid steer or a backhoe. Next. And see, there was a bifurcation of the judicial system as well, where now, based upon your political ideology, we render judgment. Unrighteous, unacceptable, unlawful. Think about that. Oh, you have a right to be tried by a jury of your peers. Find me some peers out in society. Don't exist. We don't have the country that we think we do. And that's maybe the biggest overarching theme here. We are not what we were. And even if we weather this coming storm and become what we were supposed to be in the first place again, even if the phoenix rises from the ashes, there is a long row to hoe ahead before that happens. We're going to see more of this, and gun laws aren't going to fix it. In fact, it would be my estimation that because we will see more of this, made it happen, not let it happen, facilitated for these sick and twisted individuals, which, anybody been paying attention to the FBI lately? Man, they seem to have their fingers in pretty much everything except enforcing federal law, huh? Almost as if they've been co-opted or something. Who'd have thought? I think we will see more of this to push this agenda, this narrative of we must have gun control. until the people cry out that we've got to have it. The thing is, and this gets back to 5th generation warfare and the game of narratives. The thing is, this is not a popular opinion. Just like abortion is not a popular opinion. But they, the big they, using the game of narratives, media, mass media, social media, press releases, talking points from the White House, this media blitz, push these issues as if the vast majority of Americans want these things. And they do not. Independent polling has found that they do not. In a recent poll, polling individuals about the air quote right to an abortion, I don't know outranked, yes, you have a constitutional right to an abortion. I don't know performed better than, yeah, I think you should have a constitutional right to an abortion. Really? And that answer, the latter, yes, you should have a right to it, was somewhere around 8%. But if you were to believe the media, it's 80% of people think. If you were to believe the media and the talking points, they want you to think the entire country believes that we have to do something about these weapons of war. Not that case. It's not that way. Interestingly, across the sea, another 22-year-old shot 3 and wounded 7 in a shopping mall in Copenhagen, Denmark. That man posed with a rifle and a handgun on social media. Oh, so you mean that guy was probably a known entity, just like all these other shooters in the United States have been known entities? The FBI was aware of this individual before the crime. I'm sure they were. Where do you think they're getting the weapons and the ammunition and maybe the training from? Copenhagen. The man posed with a rifle and a handgun on social media. Reports say the Danish man likely suffers from severe mental illness. The man has been arrested and admitted to a psychiatric facility, and he will face 3 counts of manslaughter. How is it manslaughter if you intentionally try and kill somebody? That's attempted murder. Or murder if you succeed. Manslaughter is accidental death. There's a Torah for that as well. The man has been arrested and admitted to a psychiatric facility, and he will face 3 counts of manslaughter and 7 counts of attempted murder. Just to note, in Denmark, the law forbids civilians from owning semi-automatic weapons and handguns without special authorization, which includes a valid reason for possession, minimum age of 18, and a successful background check that includes both criminal and mental health records. Now, we're going to talk more about civil unrest. If you are on Patreon, you have the links and the written brief that I just discussed. If you're not, you don't. It's $5 a month. It's the best $5 you can spend on the internet. It's early in the month. It's a good time to join Patreon. You will get a lot of bang for your buck out of that $5. That's 1 can of Copenhagen or 1 caramel macchiato from Starbucks per month. And so if you are more highly valuing the treasures of Babylon rather than intelligence and input that could potentially save your life, Mazel Tov, America, you do you, boo. But for the rest of y'all that are trying to stay switched on and informed, patreon.com, search for Bear Independent, or there is a link in every video. Now, continuing civil unrest, let's talk macro, global. A war indicator. NATO has just ratified, just accepted the Finland and Sweden into NATO. Why is this important? Because the war in the war in Ukraine, perpetuated by Russia, was never designed to stop in Ukraine. Russia wants to limit access for 3rd generation warfare, ground warfare, from invading armies. Russia's been invaded more than 50 times in its history as a country, and they're very sensitive to this. Life flight. I don't know if y'all can hear it or not. Low, 500 foot. I assume a life flight. I can't see it yet. I may not because of the tree cover. Although we've had some very interesting aircraft flying around doing interesting things lately. But that information's not for you. Russia, Ukraine, NATO. So now Finland and Sweden have joined NATO. Why? Because the war in Ukraine was never about Ukraine. It's about getting through Ukraine for Russia to essentially be able to impose a blockade on the western side of Ukraine. So if you go north into Russia, what do you see? You see Finland and then Sweden. And the Finns and the Russians have a long history of distrust and disdain for one another. They don't like each other. But now that agreement for Finland and Sweden to join NATO has been ratified, that's good to go. And we only had to buy off Turkey, who had an issue with Finland and Sweden joining, with 40 F-16 fighter jets. And Turkey is not a great ally. I mean, they're also stacking Russian air defense missiles right now as a NATO ally, Turkey is. So that gives you some idea of where their motivations are at. American fighter jets, Russian air defense missiles. Okay. So in the macro picture, what that leads to is the likely amplification of the war in Eastern Europe. We've reported over and over again that NATO troops, U.S. troops, because the United States is the backbone of NATO, U.S. troops are being deployed in very large numbers to Eastern Europe. So much so that in certain cases, we've pulled troops out of the Pacific region and moved them to Eastern Europe. NATO itself is talking about its QRF, its readiness forces, wanting to expand that by 1,000% from 30,000 troops to 300,000 troops. Germany just poured $100 billion, I believe it was $100 billion, it might have been $150 billion, into its defense spending and wants to add another 100,000 troops to their standing army. These are all indicators, man, and that means this war is going to drag on. Why does that, and we'll talk about how that affects civil unrest here in the United States now, I suppose. Why does that matter? Because this is going to mean an ongoing interruption in both food and fuel and fertilizer and parts and components and textiles and everything, right? Ongoing. There's been a lot of hay made out of the fact that Russia is trying to, or has successfully at this point, tied its currency to gold rather than oil. Well, think about renewable energy here in the United States of America and the big push for green energy. Having worked in that industry, you can't have green energy without oil because we have to smelt the steel and the aluminum and the copper and produce the cable and transport all of the components and make the concrete. You know, the number one polluter on earth is turning lime into cement, Portland cement. Number one. Did you know each wind turbine we put up is going to have on average 650 cubic yards, 65 truckloads of concrete in it, and hundreds of tons of reinforcing steel, and the big Caterpillar track hose that have got to dig the foundation out, and the semis that have to haul all the rebar, and the cranes, 1,500 ton capacity cranes to lift up those wind turbines. They've got 385 gallon diesel tanks on them, and you got to top them off at the end of each shift, so forth and so on. The green is a ruse. You can't have green without oil. And in the United States of America, even if we quadrupled our refining capacity within the next decade, we're still not going to be where we need to be actually energy independent, because what we are good at, what our refineries are good at, is importing low quality oil from other places and turning it into high quality oil products like gasoline and JP8 and diesel. A lot of the oil that we're currently producing here that's offshore is less than ideal, and our refineries we don't have enough refineries set up to process that to be truly energy independent. Why does that matter? Because we have a petrodollar. We've had a petrodollar since Henry Kissinger, I believe. When we got off the gold standard, we got on the petro standard. We tied the value of the US dollar to the value of oil. And so if we look at big indicators here, why the big push for green energy? Macro, micro, push, pull. Part of it is diversification for these energy companies because they're no longer oil companies, they're now energy companies. And a portion of their portfolio is in renewables. In fact, a law was passed during the Obama administration, I believe, that within the next 10 years, that all these energy companies needed to have a minimum of 10% of their output from renewable energies. A minimum. Okay, that's diversification being funded with your taxpayer dollars so that ExxonMobil, Dutch Shell, British Petroleum can subsidize the infrastructure build out for them to meet the federal requirement to have a minimum of 10% of their production capacity in renewables. Copy that. And by the way, Bush Jr. was a more egregious violator of your sovereignty with that than Obama was. The federal government under Bush Sr., or Bush Jr. rather, matched dollar for dollar, whatever the project of the cost was. $2 billion project, you come up with $1 billion, they come up with $1 billion. Under Obama, his initial payout was $2 billion total for the entire industry. You can't buy hard hats for all the guys in that industry for $2 billion. That's nothing. Average job, when I was in, average job cost $2 to $4 million bucks. One job for a couple hundred wind turbines and some power line. So, point here is diversification. What about the macro picture, energy-wise? The macro picture here is if you know that the dollar is tied to oil and you're actively trying to get off of oil, what does that do to the dollar? Almost as if it dovetails into the intentional crash landing of the American dollar, the US economy, and therefore the world's economies, perhaps exacerbated by some type of global pandemic since February of 2019. See, there's layers upon layers upon layers here. You know, ogres are like onions. You can take the peel off and look, and then take the first layer off, the second layer off, the third layer off. And there's 20 layers before you get to the core, the center, right? And one layer does not negate the other. The onion skin does not negate the core of the onion. They're all part and parcel. They're all one and the same, even though they make up the structure, but they're all kind of different, right? So one theory does not necessarily negate the other. Just like covenants, they stack. They don't replace one another. So on the macro scale, by getting off of the U.S. oil and oil in general, we devalue the U.S. dollar, which is why you see around the world countries and economies trying to tie themselves to, rather than the U.S. dollar, to gold or to oil. See, you can now buy oil in rubles and yuan, Russia and China. That's a big deal because for every barrel of oil that's bought with a ruble or yuan, that's a barrel of oil that's not bought with the US dollar, which actually weakens the US dollar. Bretton Woods. And we could argue till the cows come home whether or not they should have done that. No, I think we should have stayed on the gold standard. Why did we do that? Because gold is what it is. How do you do fractional reserve banking and quantitative easing with a hunk of metal? But when we base it upon oil production and we turn money into ones and zeros, now there's room to play. Now there's room to extract even more capital, which is actually power from the system. And that system is dying. So back to energy. Energy costs, whether it's fuel or electricity, are gonna go through the roof in the next 5 years because of supply chain issues, supply and demand, because of global war, whether that's large scale, entire world war or isolated war, because of inflation and because of poor leadership at the executive level. That's just gonna happen. So people won't go to work, or they'll go to work less, which means there's going to be less economic output, which is going to hurt the economy even more, which means there's going to be fewer things for you to purchase, to buy. Companies are going to go out of business. That's going to hurt the American economy even more so. It's going to be a slew of cascading effects because of high energy costs. Civil unrest. Well, what about let them eat cake? Fuel is instrumental to the production and distribution of food. To say nothing of the fact that we have globally many areas that are offline or not exporting due to supply constraints, meaning food costs are going to go up significantly as well. There's no cake for them to eat. People behaving badly. Ultimately, macro indicator, this has the ability to remove enough legitimacy from the federal government because they've created their own demise at this point. That they remove enough legitimacy that people begin to lose respect for the government because they cannot affect provision, protection, blessing on their constituents. And therefore, people just start to opt out of the system. And if people opt out of the system enough, the tax base is degraded to the point that the government can't function. It becomes truly insolvent, which then what happens? More civil unrest. So, I hope all this is making sense. Yes, a scumbag did something in Chicago, or a Chicago suburb, that he should not have done, and that person deserves death. Not to sit in a jail cell for the rest of their life. That person deserves death. To the rock pile. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, y'all. It's going to get worse. And I'm trying to explain to you why it's going to get worse in ways that are relatively easy to understand so that you can onboard that information, so that you can navigate appropriately the days, weeks, months, years ahead. Do I even still have a live stream? I do. 2,600 of y'all. How cool. I appreciate y'all very much. Again, shout out to the patrons. Thank you for supporting the show. Patreon.com, search for Bear Independent, or there's a link in every video and live stream. Additionally, this is your cue. If you're one of those people that jumps off when it's time to talk about how to support the show, beat feet, skedaddle, have a blessed day, get out of here. If you're not, Refuge Medical, we are now up to 48 lives saved. Not 46, 48. Lives 47 and 48 were both fireworks related. So both of these families need prayers. Life 47 was a woman who was dropping a mortar into a mortar tube, and that mortar prematurely exploded in the tube and basically blew off both of her hands. The guy's wife, praise the Most High, had a bare fac, and he was able to apply a cat tourniquet to the right arm and a SWAT T to the left arm. It illustrates you should be getting more than one tourniquet. And he saved her life. But they are going to have a long road ahead of them with rehabilitation and medical bills and learning to adjust to the fact that she doesn't have hands anymore. So pray for them. That's a bad deal. But praise the Most High, he had a kit and knew how to use it at the ready. It's another thing. If you're doing dangerous stuff, and explosives are dangerous, by the way, children, your kit should be with you, not in the truck or in the backpack or in the house or, oh, I left it at work. It has to be with you. If it's not with you, it doesn't matter. You don't have it. It's like your concealed carry weapon. Remember the FedEx shooting in Indianapolis a year ago? The last guy that shooter shot, he shot him in the back while that guy was on his way to his vehicle to get his CCW that he should have had on him in the first place, regardless of what company policies are. And all you companies out there that restrict your employees' God-given rights, shame on you. Also, all you companies out there, OSHA has changed their rule. You must provide first aid kits that have a windlass tourniquet in them by the end of this year, and you must provide training to your employees on how to use them. Look it up. It's called an OSHA Class B kit. We're the only one that's making one that actually has a real tourniquet in it. And of course, when those come, I'll let you know. It'll be an actual purpose-built OSHA Class B kit. But in the meanwhile, any of our individual first aid kits will work for that. Life 48, law enforcement officer, Northern California, was at a 4th of July gathering, and his brother-in-law blew 4 of his fingers off of one hand with fireworks. He had an SOB on his duty belt, small to back kit, ran up to the porch where his duty belt was at, pulled the SOB kit off, went to work, saved the guy's life. Explosives are dangerous. It also illustrates the fact that I'm not a cool guy. I don't wear body armor for a living. I don't wear, I'm not in a theater of war. I'm not a law enforcement officer. I don't need a bleeding control kit. Now, I would disagree. If you are currently breathing and there's blood inside of your body, you need a bleeding control kit. 9 out of 10 preventable deaths in the United States. 9 out of 10 preventable deaths are from uncontrolled bleeding. And statistically, the most dangerous thing you do every day is drive. You need a bleeding control kit. So, refugemedical.com. Today, in stock today, is this. This is the ARC, the Advanced Rip-Away Kit. Refuge Medical, handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever. 48 lives saved to date. We are on 4 continents with all branches electively of the U.S. Armed Forces, thousands of law enforcement officers. 48 lives saved. Not because we think it's a good idea or we wanted to add some products to our store. No, we make these from the ground up. We design these, we manufacture these, we spec out all of the equipment that's inside of them. We do the testing and evaluation. We also send these to individuals and units around the globe that run these with the specified intent of destroying them so that we can make them better and better and better. It's not some cheap Chinese garbage where we're trying to find the highest profit margin. In fact, as the CEO of this company, I don't draw a salary from it. Our mission statement is to save lives while in service to the Father's kingdom and experiencing the abundance of His provision and blessing. And abundance is not a yacht or a big house or a jacked up truck. It's getting to save people's lives, doing something meaningful with people that we love inside of a company, an organization that is purpose driven and supports American values. This is the ARC, Advanced Rip-Away Kit. Has this buckle, it's MOLLE capable. It also comes with straps to mount this on your headrest. So you can put this on your war belt, your plate carrier, the headrest of your vehicle, wherever you like it. This was developed by Twitch, our lead instructor, who has rendered aid in the line of duty more than 30 times. Okay, so it has a buckle for retention, has this red handle. Pull this kit off, you now have this kit in your hand. You can also, if it's on your plate carrier, leave it dangle and open it up and work from this shingle of med gear while it's still attached to you. It's up to you. If you want to let it dangle off of your kit and dive through the pouches, you can do that. Or you can rip it off and lay it on the ground next to the casualty. It has a committee on TCCC recommended soft tourniquet, Special Operations Forces tourniquet. This is a windlass tourniquet. It's an excellent tourniquet, one of the ones that we recommend and that we train in class at refugetraining.com. North American Rescue shears, a Sharpie, an S-mark bandage, which is essentially a SWAT T bandage, two pairs, so total 4 compact chest seals, combat gauze right here, quick clot combat gauze, right, for wound packing, a compact pressure bandage right here. Then down here in the bottom, you've got a bunch of gauze for wound packing as well. So there's 2 packages of compressed gauze down here, a nasopharyngeal airway, and 2 more chest seals. And so you can treat 1 really jacked up casualty or 2 standard, if you will, casualties with this kit. Additionally, the way it's designed, the shears are retained inside of here, but they will come out if you need them to gain access to the casualty as well. This is the ARC, the Advanced Rip-Away Kit. Your promo code is BEARNATION for free shipping on everything in the store at refugemedical.com. Additionally, the bleeding control kits, they're under $60 and they are in stock today. By the way, this stuff will sell out. It always does. They're in stock today. bleeding control kits. They have a Gen 7 cat tourniquet, a 6-inch emergency trauma dressing, wound packing gauze, gloves, shears, Sharpie, and I don't know what else. 67 bucks. The tourniquet is 30 of it when you can get them. What's up?
Don't mean to interrupt.
Uh-huh. But
your camera's backwards.
My camera's backwards? Well, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Well, they were looking at the pallet of water, I guess.
Yeah, so they didn't see the kit.
They didn't see the kit.
Or anything.
Or anything.
There you go. Save the live stream.
Thanks. I don't know how I did that. I also don't care. Anyway, this is the Ark. I'll show it to you again real quick. It's got this buckle. Pop this open. Pull this off. Open it up. There's your kit. Handmade, made in America. See that little tag right there? Guaranteed forever. Here's the deal. Again, these will sell out. They always do. So we have a very limited supply of them. Go get them. The bleeding control kit, also in stock. Those will sell out. Refuge training. Let's talk about refuge training. You need to know how to use this stuff. We've been told by myriad people who get shot at for a living and or close with and destroy the enemy for a living. This is the best class for a civilian that we're aware of. So, can you go take an American Red Cross class? Yeah. Can you go train with other people? Yeah. Is it as good as refuge training? I don't think it is. So, check it out, refugetraining.com. We've got classes, a few seats left in Dallas, and a couple of spots left in Philly. Philly is as far north and as far east as we will go because I enjoy these and these. So, refugetraining.com. You need to know how to actually do this stuff. Not just have the kit, but you need to know how to do it. Like I said, we're up to 48 lives saved to date. That's absolutely badass. But possession does not equate to proficiency. Having a badass Daniel Defense DDM V7 doesn't make you a good shooter. Okay? It just doesn't. You have to know how to use the equipment in order for it to matter. It's the same thing with medical equipment. So, check us out, refugetraining.com. Lastly, Grindstone Ministries. Many of y'all know, you've been here a long time, but we have a lot of new people every day. Grindstone Ministries is a construction ministry that we run. And it is, we are building what's called Caleb House. And Caleb House is a restoration facility for juvenile human trafficking survivors. Kids that have been sold as product for sex by cartel assholes. We're building Caleb House. And while we're building Caleb House, we currently, before it's even built, we currently have 7 individuals in our care as well. I'm not going to beg you for your money or for your support, but I would ask you for your prayers. Keep us in your prayer. We have a lot going on, and it is a huge endeavor on both the rescue and the rehabilitation side, to say nothing of the construction and administrative sides, to make all this happen. And so thank you for supporting Grindstone Ministries. Pray for those kiddos. Pray for those kiddos. And pray for those of us that are involved in kicking Satan in the balls and taking back what rightfully belongs to the Father, so that we can break the generational curses with these kids and put a covering over them and restore them. That's what we're into, is restoration. Because you don't get to tell an 8-year-old who's been serially raped for 10 times a day for years, Yeah, well, our program's a year long, and hopefully you've got your shit together at the end of the year. Good luck, sweetheart. No, this is a lifelong endeavor with these kiddos. There was a cartel member that said that children are the new heroin because I can sell a bag of heroin one time, but I can sell a 5-year-old 10 times a day for 10 years before they're used up. And I want to shoot that person in the face. So, please prayerfully consider getting involved with GrindstoneMinistries.com. Help us build Caleb House. That's it. That's all I got for y'all today. Y'all have a blessed day. Shalom.